Welcome to Break Fake Rules. If you've ever questioned why we live by certain rules and wondered what becomes possible when we do things differently, well then this series is for you. Welcome to another exciting edition of Break Fake Rules. This is a little bit old school today. I know you've all come to enjoy having someone other than me asking questions. I know I have enjoyed it, but today we are in Whistler, Canada, to speak to my very good friend, Mia Birdsong, who lives in the Bay Area where I live. But we decided, why stay there to do the interview? Let's go all the way to another country in case we just need to be in another country.
Yes, totally.
So it is just awesome to have you here on Break Fake
so
Rules.
Glad to be here.
This is an interview we've been trying to do for quite a while.
Yes.
I do want to say I am on the Next River board, which is Mia's fantastic organization. And I just feel people should know that.
Yes.
I don't know why that's important.
And it feels like, like transparency.
Transparency?
In some way.
Right,
Yes, sure.
because at some point in the interview, they're going to say, God, what's his deal? Is he biased or what? And I'm naturally biased. I love what you do, Mia.
Thanks.
Yeah, it's always great to talk with you, Mia, because I have a tendency, for people who know me, to focus on the things that aren't working and
Right.
going very actively at broken systems. And just listening to you right off the bat, you are focused on a different society.
Yeah.
You are focused on what could be better.
Yeah.
What is positive. And rather than getting too caught up in what's not working now, you're just trying to figure out what's the pivot to a more just and more caring society. And I appreciate that.
Great. I'm so glad. And here's what where that comes from, or part of where that comes from, is, I'm not a historian, but I'm definitely a student of history. And when I look at the moment that we're in, I see that for, us humans who live these kind of short lives compared to, the time scale that we are impacted by, the time that we're in, the moment that we're in, the horrors that we're witnessing and experiencing seem like something we should try to take care of, right? But when we open our aperture and look at, certainly if we're talking about American society, right, this is part of a pattern a pendulum swinging pattern that has happened for hundreds of years. Even if we look at, if we talk about the multiple reconstructions we've had, like this is an effort to return to a status quo. And we have spent, and by we, I mean those of us who believe in justice and liberation and progress, we've spent hundreds of years kind of reacting and resisting and fighting back to that and trying to fix it. Yeah. And in my analysis, I'm like, not only is it not fixable, I'm like, I'm not interested in the best version of that setup. I actually think we could have something way better. Yeah. I understand the kind of like fear and anxiety that has us wanting to like grip tightly to what's familiar because it feels safe. Yeah. There's something comforting about it. But it's not safe. It's never been safe, right? Like, I remember I was reading this James Baldwin quote. He was like, Black people have always lived under fascism in America. Like this is what it is. Yeah. And if we can find the courage to let go of trying to hold on to this thing, trying to fix this thing, and trust that together, if we are oriented toward our collective care and well-being, we can build something better.
I have to say, I want to give the audience an opportunity to kind of take this in maybe multiple listens to this episode, because that's the benefit I've had in getting to know you. We talk about breaking fake rules on the show. You take it to another level, in my opinion.
Yeah, like holding on to America is a fake rule.
Right. I mean, that's heavy.
Yeah,
that's hard to get. It's very destabilizing feeling.
It is. I think the people who fund us do understand that. And I do think that there are folks in philanthropy right now, I've talked to many of them, who do feel a little fatalistic about the structure that they're set with. The folks who understand this are able to hold kind of having one foot in the material realities of the world that we live in, and the power they have to protect, to, ensure that people are not suffering as much under all of this.
I think that's where we are.
Yes. And they understand that if we only do that, this same act of people being attacked and them having and a future version of them having to protect those folks is going to occur again. And they're like, oh yeah, we want to get off of this, kind of pendulum where the folks that we're trying to protect are going to be it's going to be some different version in 20 years or 50 years or 100 years. And they're like, yeah, we need to, and recognizing, seeing that that's been what's occurred over the last several hundred years, is that we keep being in this place where some group of people or multiple groups of people are under attack, and it's not necessarily been philanthropy, but like some of us are trying to protect them as they are trying to protect themselves and care for themselves. And then I think the other thing is that like the runway is getting shorter because of climate change. We are moving toward our like extinction. And if we want that to not happen, there's a big pivot that we need to make around what we think, how we behave, and what we think. And I say we, this is like, humans, but obviously there's a very small group of people who are actually kind of creating all of this. But we need to move toward something else that is not about like the world is, the planet is here for that our benefit is extractive, right? Like what our benefit actually is, stewarding and care for, and,
the total change of mindset.
Yeah, totally.
And so, we get into fake rules here. Yeah. There's a fake rule, a big one, that ties right to individualism. And it has an impact on something we call freedom.
Yes.
And I've been sitting here thinking about that silly flag that people like to put on their big trucks with the snake on it, and it says, "Don't tread on me." So that's very important to some people. Yeah. This "don't tread on me" as a statement of freedom and individualism.
Yes.
So, and that is, I think, more ingrained in the American psyche than we realize.
Yes, across the political spectrum.
It's a deep fake rule. Why is that a fake rule?
Yeah.
And how does that apply to notions of freedom?
Yeah. I mean, this is really the kind of foundational body of work that Next River is working on, and that I've been thinking about for the last like 8 to 10 years at this point. So the American mythology around freedom is kind of like, I get to do whatever the hell I want. Right. Like our kind of the epitome of being a free person requires that you have like accumulated so much like power and so many resources that you can do whatever you want without consequence.
Right.
Or responsibility. And I think about, when we're recording this, like we're kind of like still kind of in the wave of the Epstein files coming out. And I think about those men, and that they have not had to, and I don't think will experience consequences for the abhorrent, diabolical behavior that they had. And I want to be also clear, because I feel like this is important. Like, again, this is a repeating pattern.
Yes.
Everything that happened on that island happened on plantations. Like,
I was just thinking
America
the same thing.
Has been I'm like Epstein and Trump. Let me introduce you to Thomas Jefferson.
Right.
And Andrew Jackson.
Right.
Yeah.
But it comes back to your point, which is
this is what America actually is.
Yeah,
right. This is what our power structures have always been. But going back to freedom. But it's a freedom that has only been available to a select few, primarily, landowning white straight men.
Yeah.
So that's the mythology, and it has us all oriented toward like, how close can we get to that thing?
Right.
And
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Keep going
I mean,
with that.
we are, yeah.
That's the utopia.
Yes. That's
currently.
is like, how can I be somebody who doesn't have to give a shit about anybody else and I get to do whatever I want?
Unaccountable.
And like so disconnected, not only from like anybody else, right? Because we're doing it ourselves.
Right.
So I don't have to see all the labor that's involved in like me living my life.
Right.
But also disconnected from yourself.
Right.
Like not really in touch with your feelings, not really in touch with your humanity, because to be human is to be connected. So this, for me, came from research that I came across when I was writing my first book, How We Show Up, for sale at a bookseller near you. And there were two things that I came across. One was etymology. And I always feel like when I learn the like etymology of a word, I'm like opening a sacred scroll that's been like locked in a, you know, like an Indiana Jones kind of thing where you find it, because it just like reveals so much. And the etymology of freedom, first of all, it shares a like a root origin with the word friendship. And just that was amazing to me.
That's interesting.
And it's rooted in a Sanskrit word that means like love or beloved. And I remember reading that, and it's not what I thought when I read it, but what I felt when I read it. The idea that like friendship and freedom are related to each other and connected to the idea of like love. I was like, oh, like, what's that? And then the other thing I read in multiple places actually was that like pre-1500s, like not American, but human societies understood freedom as something that you experienced or accessed or had in the context of like a connected, caring community. Which, like, if you think about, you know, what we are biologically, like, you know, if you have to worry about, are you going to be attacked by a bear, or are you going to be able to eat, like, you're not feeling very free, right?
Right.
And I think about that for us, like, if you're worried about, can you pay your rent, or are you going to be able to buy your insulin? Like, that is not a state of being liberated.
Right.
So it made sense to me that freedom would exist in the context of community. And I remember thinking, like, I mean, one, it made me think about Black people's experience in the United States, from being kidnapped and trafficked, you know. And if we think about, like, if freedom is found among your people, right, that, and we expand the notion of like who your people are to include your ancestors, your land, your culture, right? So being stolen from our people, trafficked across the ocean, being put into a system of enslavement where like a key experience or a key factor was the threat or experience of being sold away from your people.
Yeah. Among many.
Through like, you know, the like, you know, white terrorism that happened in the South that created what we call the Great Migration, which was really a refugee crisis.
Yes.
So people, again, fleeing home, family, land, all the way to like the prison industrial complex or child protective services, right? America has made it a project of trying to make us unfree by separating us from each other. And we have resisted the entire time. I mean, Black people jumping overboard slave ships to be like, I'm going home one way or another. After enslavement, there was this massive movement of Black folks placing ads in newspapers to try to find
their family.
Yes. I mean, there are archives online, and they're beautiful and like utterly heartbreaking.
Yeah, they're horrible.
Just like, you know, trying to find a friend that they hadn't seen in 30 years, or their child, or their sister, or their husband. To so much of our resistance work, right, is about like us staying together, us being with each other. To the fact that, like, you know, Black folks, I know so many Black adults who find out when they're grown that like Uncle Bobby is not actually their father's brother, what was like their father's best friend growing up. Like, we choose family with each other. We make family like with whoever we have.
Right.
And that is such a like liberatory practice. And like, you know, Black people are not the only people that America has tried to do that. I think about, you know, residential schools for Indigenous folks and separating, you know, taking people's children and not just separating them, but trying to separate their minds and their beliefs from their people.
Right.
To, you know, what we're seeing right now with people being kidnapped off the streets and like, you know, being stolen from each other, being stolen from their families, their communities. It's one of the ways America knows how to make us unfree. And, you know, and it's basically, it's like freedom is in this direction. It is toward each other. And America has been telling us, it's been pulling this grift on us for hundreds of years, telling us it's over here with the wealth hoarders and the separation and the DIYing everything and never asking for help and, you know, the self-made man, right? Like that mythology is so deep in our culture.
Wow. And it is the utopia where you're going toward.
And I'm like, no, it's this other thing. So I was reading all of this and just having all of these thoughts. And I was like, well, what would our society be like if we lived in a society where we pursued this interconnected freedom with the same like passion and like orientation that we pursue this individualistic one? And I was like, what would be different about like our economy? What would our systems of care look like? How would we even design, you know, like our communities? And I started to think about that. And I was like, this feels like it underpins everything that I care about, that all of the social movements and activism and, you know, attempts to shift legislation and policy and behavior and culture are on top of this thing.
Yeah.
And if we don't deal with this, all of this other stuff is just like weakened and ultimately I think fails.
And what I find so interesting working with you is that you already kind of got into this earlier, so I think people know where I'm going to go with this. But when I ask you, so what are we going to do? Your answer is, I don't know. And that's what Next River is for.
Well, I don't know what it looks like.
Right.
Like I don't know where we're headed exactly, but I know what it feels like. And all of us actually know what it feels like because this notion of interconnected freedom it's not new. It is, like I said, we all have ancestral memory of this. This is who we are this is what it means to be human. And, you know, we could have called this care. We could have called it mutuality. We could have called it a bunch of things, but understanding it as freedom feels really important in an American context. Feels really important for us to know that Fannie Lou Hamer was not being cute or like, you know, when she said like, nobody's free unless everybody's free. Like, that's just true.
Yeah.
Right. And it requires that we understand that like my well-being depends on your well-being in a very material way. And to walk through the world understanding that, like I can understand that about like, you know, my husband, right? Like if he's having a really bad day, like that impacts me, right? Or if I'm having a hard time, it impacts him. But to understand that about like strangers or like, you know, I think in, you know, where I live in Oakland, I'm like unhoused people. I'm like how they are doing impacts me.
Right.
And I see it with the way in which like people are, you know, when people don't have what they need, those of us who do build more fences and like, you know, put more cameras up and buy more guns.
Man, you're turning the whole thing upside down right here. Whole thing. This seems like we ask a question at the end of every show, and I hate that this is the end of this show. I really do. So you'll come back?
Yeah, I will totally come back.
Okay, great.
Coming
so
back.
This
you
is
saw him
seem...
ask me to come back. So,
what is one major fake rule you'd like to see people break right now?
I think it is the time horizon that we think about. I think in philanthropy, it is the like, you know, just from a like tactical perspective, like the 3-year grants, 5-year grants being like, you know, oh my God, so long. I'm like, it is not. The right funds for decades. They are throwing money at leaders, at infrastructure, at systems, and they're experimenting with all of that. And they're like, we will learn from like the failure.
Yeah.
We will like learn so much from just like trying a whole bunch of shit and seeing what works. And
Yeah.
they know that you can't figure that out by giving somebody money to try something for a year.
That's right.
It takes people 3 years to just like figure out what it is they want to try and
Right.
to like build, hire people and all that. So like we are just losing. We're just like, it's like drip drab nonsense when funding happens in that framework. And I think for all of us, right, thinking about what are we doing, what are we dreaming about, what are we putting in place that is going to benefit our descendants, right, the people who live, 5 generations from now in 100 years, and are we building something that they will have to dismantle? I'm like, if we're building something that will like benefit them, I'm like, that's how you know you're like on the right course.
Mm-hmm.
But if we're building something that they're going to have to get rid of, I'm like, that feels like a waste of time. So, and this is the thing that I feel like when people are like, oh, we're not going to get to live in that world. This is what I want folks to understand. That the future we want for them is the one that we're trying to practice right now. That if what we're practicing is short-term thinking, resistance, fighting back, reacting, then that is the world we are building.
That is a very good point.
If we can practice something else, then that's the world we're building. And what happens is we kind of, this is where my like trekkiness comes out. We kind of collapse time. What we have found and what we're seeing in the work that we're doing with people and, the research that I've did before I started Next River and the research that we've done since is that when we practice interconnected freedom in the present, we create these like spaces or moments or relationships where it is showing up. And it's imperfect, but it is still present, right? It's imperfect because we still have to contend with externally the systems and culture that we're part of, but also, we've internalized all those systems. So
Right.
there's all of this excavation that we have to do.
That goes back to the first part of this conversation.
Yes. So it's like, the individualism exists in us, and so does the interconnection, the interdependence. And it's like, what are we feeding, right? And what are we starving? And the more that we are practicing feeding our embracing and celebrating of our interconnection and caring for each other, the more we experience it now. And that for me, I'm like, I'm not going to get to the world that I actually envision, but that I get to bring a little bit of it into my life and into the life of the people that I'm around right now feels so nourishing and enlivening, especially in the context that we're in.
Yeah.
And like in a real way, not in a like I'm, kind of escaping from or ignoring what's happening right now. It's like this is actually how we survive the present is with each other and caring for each other. And it's how we build the world that we want.
Thanks so much for coming on
Oh
Break
my
Fake
gosh.
Rules, Mia.
Delighted.
It's been great.
Thank
it's been
you,
great.
Glen.
And thank you for joining us on Break Fake Rules. We will be back with another fake rule breaker in the next one. Thank you for tuning in to Break Fake Rules. Subscribe to the Stupski Foundation YouTube channel to watch videos of each episode. And join the conversation with me on LinkedIn.